The airport was full of noise, rolling bags, tired voices, and the buzz of morning flights. A woman walked quietly through the crowd. Her name was Maya Daniels, and she didn't wear anything fancy. Simple jeans, a gray hoodie, and dark sunglasses hid her face. No one noticed her. That's how she liked it. She had just come from a long business trip. She was tired, but her mind was sharp. Maya had built something big in silence. She was the CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the country, but no one recognized her. She walked to gate 37, where her flight to New York was about to board. Her ticket was first class, but she didn't care about showing off. She just wanted to get home and rest. The flight attendant at the gate looked at her, then frowned. "Excuse me, miss," the woman said sharply. "This line is for first class." Maya calmly showed her ticket. "I know." The woman stared at her, confused, then looked at her clothes again. "Wait here," she said, stepping away. Maya stood quietly as the gate agent whispered to another employee. People started staring. Some gave Maya strange looks. Others pulled out their phones. When the gate agent came back, her voice was louder now. "Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to wait. There's been an issue with your ticket." "There's no issue," Maya said. Her voice was soft but steady. "I booked this flight 2 weeks ago." A security officer came walking over. The agent looked relieved. "She's causing a disturbance," she told him. The officer turned to Maya. "I'm going to have to ask you to come with me." "I haven't done anything wrong," Maya replied. "Please don't make this harder," he said firmly. Maya looked around. Phones were recording. People were whispering. Then she nodded. "Fine." She picked up her bag and walked with the officer. Calm. Quiet. No shouting. No fight. But before she left, she turned to the crowd. Her eyes, behind the sunglasses, scanned every face. She said just one sentence. "You'll remember this day." The video went viral by the evening. Black woman dragged off first-class flight. No reason given. Airline refuses to explain. Who is this woman? People argued online. Some blamed her. Others defended her. But no one knew her name. Not yet. In her apartment, Maya sat on the couch and watched the news. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just watched, like someone planning their next move in a chess game. Her phone buzzed. It was her assistant. "Do you want to go public?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "Not yet." "But they don't know who you are," he said. "I know," Maya said. There was silence. Then she added, "They will." The airline released a short statement. "We are looking into the matter. We apologize for any misunderstanding." People were not happy. The video had been seen by over 20 million people in 12 hours. Hashtags started trending. Hashtag justice for Maya. Hashtag wrong woman. Hashtag flyfair. Still, the airline didn't understand. They thought she was just another angry passenger, another story that would disappear in a few days. They didn't know her history. They didn't know what she had survived. And they had no idea who they had just embarrassed on camera. Maya Daniels was no ordinary woman. She had once slept in her car. She had washed her clothes in public bathrooms. She had been laughed at, ignored, and rejected for years. But she had never quit. Now she had built a company worth billions. Her name was known in tech circles, but she had stayed quiet, away from media, away from fame. She had power, but chose to use it quietly. Until now. Now, they had forced her into the spotlight, not by asking, but by dragging her out in front of the world. At the airline headquarters, 2 executives watched the news and read the comments online. "This is bad," one said. "It'll pass," the other shrugged. "They always do." But just then, a third man ran into the room holding his phone. His face was pale. "Guys," he said, almost out of breath, "you need to see this." He turned the phone around. It showed a headline from a major business site. Woman in viral flight video revealed to be Maya Daniels, CEO of Innovatech. The room went silent. "No," the first executive whispered. They all stared at the screen. Underneath the article was a quote from one of Maya's past interviews. "Respect is not something you ask for. It's something you teach them to give." The world had just learned her name. Maya Daniels. Social media exploded. News channels rushed to explain who she was. Business websites wrote articles with bold headlines. "The tech queen you never heard of." She was dragged off a plane. Now the airline is shaking. But still, many people asked, who is she really? To know Maya Daniels now, you had to understand where she came from. Maya was born in a small, forgotten neighborhood on the south side of Atlanta. Her mother worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses during the day and waiting tables at night. Her father left when she was 5. Maya remembered only his back as he walked away, never turning around. Her family had little money. Sometimes no running water. Sometimes no food in the fridge. But they had hope. Maya's mother often told her, "You don't have to stay here, baby. You just have to climb." In school, Maya was quiet. She read more than she talked. She stayed late at the library, pretending to wait for a ride so she could stay warm. Other kids teased her, called her weird. But she didn't care. She kept her head down and her heart full. She wanted something bigger. One night, she asked her mom, "Do you think someone like me could ever be a CEO?" Her mom smiled and said, "Why not you?" At 18, Maya got a scholarship to a small college in Chicago, but it wasn't easy. She worked nights cleaning dorm bathrooms. She ate cheap noodles to survive. Sometimes she studied with cold fingers because she couldn't afford heat in her apartment. But still, she didn't quit. Maya loved computers. She understood machines better than people. She started building apps. First small ones, tools to help students study. Then bigger ones, apps to help people find jobs, save money, feel safe. People started to notice. By 25, she had dropped out of grad school to start her own company, Innovatech. No one believed in her at first. Investors didn't return her calls. Some smiled at her in meetings, but said no. "You're not what we expected from a tech founder," one man told her. She understood what he meant. Still, she didn't quit. She built her company brick by brick. She hired smart people, trained them well, and treated them with respect. She made tools that helped small businesses grow. She kept prices low and quality high. By 30, her company was worth $2 billion. But she stayed out of the spotlight. No interviews, no red carpets, no big speeches. She didn't want fame. She wanted freedom. Now, the world knew her face, but only because she had been humiliated. They didn't know that the woman dragged off the plane had once slept in her car for 3 weeks during winter. They didn't know she had once sold her laptop to buy food. They didn't know that the woman they judged by her clothes had more money in her bank account than the airline CEO. And Maya still said nothing. She didn't tweet. She didn't speak to reporters. She watched, planned, waited. Because Maya had learned long ago, power doesn't come from shouting. It comes from strategy. In a small, quiet room, Maya sat with her legal team. Her lawyer, Mr. Kent, had been with her since the beginning. A tall, older man with sharp eyes and a soft voice. "They humiliated you, Maya," he said. "We can sue for millions." Maya looked at him and smiled slightly. "I don't want millions," she said. "I want something bigger." He raised an eyebrow. "Bigger? I want them to remember this forever. I want a change they can't delete with a press statement." Her assistant leaned forward. "You want justice?" Maya nodded slowly. "I want a message." They didn't understand yet, but they would. That night, Maya logged into her private business account. She started buying shares of the airline, quietly. Not much at first, just enough to stay under the radar. But with each passing hour, she bought more. She didn't need control yet. She needed access, information, She also made a few other calls. One to a public relations expert, one to a civil rights organization, and one to a little girl she mentored through a youth leadership program. The girl answered, excited. "Miss Maya, I saw you on TV." Maya smiled. "I know. It's not how I wanted you to see me. But maybe it's the way the world needed to." The girl asked, "Are you gonna be okay?" Maya's voice was calm and kind. "I'm going to do better than okay. I'm going to make sure they never do this to anyone again." Meanwhile, the airline's boardroom was on fire with panic. Executives held emergency meetings. Spokespeople scrambled for the right words. Stockholders were nervous. One executive stood and said, "We have to fix this before she speaks. Once she talks, this all gets worse." But Maya didn't talk. She moved, quietly, powerfully. And the world was about to see what it really meant to drag the wrong woman off a plane. The airline thought it was just another angry passenger. They were wrong. What came next was not just a lawsuit, it was a storm. And at the center of it stood Maya Daniels, silent but unstoppable. The world watched closely. After Maya's story went viral, people wanted more than just an apology. They wanted action. They wanted justice. Across social media, hashtags trended for days. Hashtag justice for Maya. Hashtag dragged but not defeated. Hashtag respect black woman. Even people who had never flown that airline before started canceling bookings. Celebrities spoke out. Activists organized protests at the airline's headquarters. Still, Maya said nothing. Until one morning, everything changed. A press conference was announced. The room was full. Cameras, reporters, flashing lights. Everyone was waiting to hear from the woman they had seen dragged from a plane just days ago. Maya entered the room wearing a dark suit and calm expression. No tears, no shouting, just strength. She stepped up to the microphone and spoke clearly. "I am Maya Daniels. I am the CEO of Innovatech, a company that employs over 10,000 people. I was treated like I didn't belong, like my money didn't matter, like my voice didn't count. That ends today, not just for me, but for everyone who has ever been made to feel small." The room went silent. Then she dropped the bomb. "I am filing a $5 billion lawsuit against the airline, not just for what happened to me, but for the pattern of abuse, discrimination, and silence that has hurt so many others." Gasps, murmurs, reporters scrambling to tweet her words before the sentence even finished. Maya didn't blink. This is not just about race, or class, or gender. This is about dignity. If you treat one person this way, you think it's okay to treat us all this way. But I have resources. I have lawyers. I have truth. So now, I'm using them. Back at the airline headquarters, the mood was panic. $5 billion. One executive shouted, "She can't be serious. She's bluffing. She's making a scene." But behind the scenes, they were afraid. Because she wasn't bluffing. And she wasn't alone. Maya's lawyers had already filed over 300 pages of evidence, video footage, witness statements, documents from past employees who had been silenced, emails that showed the airline had known about racial complaints and ignored them. This wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a mirror held up to a company that had looked the other way for too long. In a quiet courtroom 2 weeks later, the first hearing began. The airline brought 10 lawyers. Maya brought 3. But when she walked in, she had something they didn't. Public support. Crowds waited outside the courthouse, holding signs and chanting her name. News vans lined the streets. Every word spoken inside the courtroom would be replayed on TV, posted online, broken down by analysts. And Maya didn't disappoint. When the judge asked why she was filing the suit, Maya said, "I was dragged off a plane. But this is about more than bruises. This is about telling every little girl who looks like me, you are not invisible, you are not voiceless, and you are not powerless." The airline's defense tried everything. They said Maya had refused to move. They claimed she had been aggressive. They tried to paint her as a problem, a threat, a nobody. But each time, they failed. Because Maya had proof. She had calmly recorded the incident. She had witnesses who had seen her treatment. And most importantly, she had the truth. One video clip was played in the courtroom. The exact moment a flight attendant rolled her eyes and muttered, "People like her always act like the rules don't apply." That clip alone reached 200 million views in 3 days. Then something unexpected happened. More people came forward. A mother who said she was removed from a flight for asking for water. A businessman who said he was moved from first class because he didn't look the part. An elderly woman who was ignored after asking for help with her wheelchair. Suddenly, Maya's lawsuit was not just hers anymore. It became a class action case. Over 400 passengers joined it. And now, the airline was truly afraid. Their stock dropped 37% in 2 weeks. Their CEO was called to resign. And still, Maya said nothing on social media. She didn't need to speak. The world was speaking for her. One night, Maya sat in her apartment, looking out the window at the city lights. Her assistant asked, "You think we'll win?" Maya answered softly, "It's not about winning. It's about waking them up. And I think they're finally starting to open their eyes." Inside the tall glass building of SkyConnect Airlines, chaos was unfolding. Boardrooms turned into war rooms. Legal teams barely slept, and executives sat in silence, watching the stock price fall like a sinking ship. Maya Daniels had done something no one expected. She hadn't just sued. She had opened a floodgate. Now the airline wasn't just facing a lawsuit. It was facing exposure. In a secret meeting room on the 31st floor, the top executives were gathered. "We have to shut this down," said one VP, pacing back and forth. "She's got the world watching," another muttered. "We can't survive this if it goes public." Then the chief legal officer stood and dropped a thick folder on the table. Everyone stared. It was full of internal complaints. Documents they'd all seen before. Complaints from passengers and employees. Ignored. Deleted. Silenced. One line stood out, printed in bold at the top of a page. "We are creating a dangerous culture." It had been written 2 years ago by a former diversity officer. She had quit after her warnings were ignored. Now that document was evidence. Back in Maya's office, her team had uncovered something explosive. One of her lawyers, Elijah, sat with a laptop, eyes wide. "Maya," he said slowly, "I think we found something." On the screen was a string of emails. They were between high-level airline staff, jokes and comments that were casual on the surface but carried something darker. She had that angry black woman energy. "We'll just settle. People like that love a payout. Make her sign a gag order, then push it under the rug." Maya stared at the screen. For a moment, she didn't say a word. Then she whispered, "They don't understand. This is bigger than me now." Meanwhile, inside the airline, someone was watching. A quiet employee named Rachel, a junior analyst in the legal department, had been silently copying files for days. She had seen too much. She couldn't stay quiet. She reached out to Maya's team anonymously. What she shared changed everything. There were audio recordings of meetings where executives laughed about complaints. A leaked memo said, "Some passengers overreact. Stay firm. Don't apologize too fast." But the worst file was a training video. It taught flight attendants how to spot problem passengers. On the list of warning signs: speaking up too much, wearing loud clothing, traveling alone while dressed in business attire, overconfidence. The actors in the video, all people of color. The safe passengers, all white. Maya watched the video in silence. Her hands clenched, but her voice was calm. "They trained people to fear me before I even sat down." Outside, the pressure grew. Every major news channel ran updates. Maya's name was everywhere. Talk shows, podcasts, magazines. But the airline? They stayed silent. That silence cost them more every day. Former employees started speaking up. A Latina gate agent said she was told not to upgrade certain types. A black pilot was passed over 3 times for promotion, even though he trained others. A pregnant woman was forced off a plane for causing discomfort to a first-class passenger. Maya wasn't alone anymore. She had started a movement. Back at SkyConnect, another meeting was held. This time, the CEO, Mr. Halverson, was pale and sweating. "What are we going to do?" someone asked him. He looked up and said one word: settle. But it was too late. Maya didn't want a payout anymore. She wanted change. She wanted the world to see everything, every lie, every cover-up, every ugly truth hiding behind the airline's shiny ads. One night, Maya's lawyer Elijah asked her, "If we win, what's next?" Maya replied, "If we win, no one will be able to say again, 'She should have just stayed quiet.'" She knew the road was far from over. But she wasn't walking it alone anymore. Behind her stood hundreds. Beside her stood millions. And ahead of her stood the truth. The morning light poured into Maya Daniels' apartment, but her heart felt heavy. She hadn't slept well in days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw herself on that plane again. The moment they dragged her off, the shock in the passenger's eyes, the silence that followed. Now, weeks had passed. Her case had become national news. People from around the world were supporting her. But the airline wasn't staying quiet anymore. They were planning something. At the SkyConnect headquarters, a decision had been made. "We're bleeding money," one board member growled. "Our stocks are crashing. Every day this woman is in the news, we lose millions." The CEO, Mr. Halverson, sat quietly. He finally spoke. "We'll offer her a deal. More than she expects. More than she's worth." The room fell silent. He continued, "She's just a businesswoman. Everyone has a price." They believed they could buy her silence. They didn't know Maya Daniels. Later that day, Maya received a message from her lawyer Elijah. "Maya," he said over the phone, "they want to settle." She was quiet. "How much?" He took a deep breath. $5 million. Maya raised her eyebrows. $5 million. "That's just the start," Elijah added. "They'll also offer you a public apology, a private meeting with the board, and a non-disclosure agreement." Maya leaned back in her chair. "They want me to disappear." Elijah didn't answer. He didn't have to. She looked out the window at the city below. "I didn't come this far for money," she whispered. The next day, she met with her legal team. The offer was official. $5 million to walk away. To end it. To stay silent forever. Many around the table nodded. "This is life-changing money," one lawyer said. But Maya stood up slowly. She placed both hands on the table and looked at each face. "You think this is about money?" Everyone went quiet. "This is about dignity, about truth, about every little girl who will be told she's too loud or too proud, about every black woman who's told to sit down and stay quiet." She paused. "I won't sign. I won't take their money. I won't be silent." Back at SkyConnect, the board couldn't believe it. She turned it down. Mr. Halverson asked in disbelief. She turned it down flat, the legal advisor confirmed. Didn't even ask for more. Just said no. Now, the panic really began. "What does she want, then?" another board member shouted. The answer came from the head of PR. "She wants the world to see who we really are." They had underestimated her, again. Maya called a press conference. The room was full. Reporters from every major outlet filled the seats. She stood tall at the podium, calm, powerful. "I was offered $5 million, she began. A big number, life-changing for some. But I refused." Gasps echoed across the room. I refused because my silence is not for sale, because I don't want your apology in private. I want your system fixed in public. She looked directly into the cameras. I want policies changed. I want every employee trained in dignity. I want accountability, not excuses. I want justice. Her speech went viral. Clips spread across social media like fire. She refused $5 million. She chose justice. A black woman stands for millions. Support poured in from around the globe, from civil rights groups, from celebrities, from everyday people who had stayed silent too long. More former employees came forward. More passengers told their stories. Sky Connect couldn't stop it. They had lit the fire. Maya had become the flame. At home that evening, Maya sat with her mom. Her mother held her hand gently. "You could have taken the money, baby," she said softly. "We've been through so much." Maya smiled, tears in her eyes. "I know, Mama. But this isn't just about us anymore." Her mom nodded, proud. "You were born for this fight." But behind the scenes, not everyone was cheering. In a dark corner of the city, someone connected to the airline was planning something dangerous. They didn't just want Maya to stop. They wanted her silenced, for good. And they were willing to do anything to make that happen. The fight was far from over. The next chapter would not be in a courtroom. It would be in the shadows. Maya Daniels had become a global voice. People chanted her name outside courtrooms. She was invited to speak on the biggest talk shows in the world. But while millions supported her in public, in the shadows, a storm was forming. Sky Connect was desperate. They had tried to bury her with money. They had tried to scare her with lawyers. Now they were ready to do something dangerous. Inside a dark office, a man known only as Mr. Vance sat across from the airline's top security chief. "She's become too powerful," the security chief whispered. "We're losing control." Vance opened a folder and pulled out photos of Maya, her office, her apartment, her daily routine. "We don't need to hurt her," he said coldly. "We just need her to vanish for a while. Break her image. Scare her. Make her seem unstable." They didn't want to kill her. They wanted to destroy her credibility. And they were ready to get dirty. Maya's days became strange. She noticed small things at first. One morning, her car alarm went off at 2 a.m., but no one was there. Another time, she came home to find her door slightly open, even though she was sure she'd locked it. At first, she told herself it was just stress, just fear playing tricks. But then her phone started acting weird. Calls dropped. Texts didn't go through. Her emails were hacked. Her lawyer, Elijah, called her in a panic. "Maya," he said, "someone's leaking false documents. They're saying you lied, that you staged the whole plane incident." "What?" she asked, shocked. "They released fake footage," he said, "edited clips that show only part of what happened." Maya's hands shook. "They're trying to make me the villain." Online, things got worse. Suddenly, fake headlines appeared. CEO Maya Daniels. Was it all a lie? Sources say she caused the drama for fame. Even some news shows started asking questions. Did Maya exaggerate? Is she just another angry woman looking for attention? It was working. The public started to turn. Not all of them, but some. And that's all the airline needed. Doubt. Late one night, Maya was driving home when she noticed a black car following her. She took a left. The car followed. She sped up. So did they. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. She called Elijah. "I think I'm being followed," she whispered. "Get to a public place now," he shouted. She drove straight into a 24-hour diner. The car behind her didn't stop. It disappeared into the night. Maya sat in the diner, shaking, trying not to cry. "They want me afraid," she whispered. But instead of breaking down, something inside her snapped. "They think they can scare me into silence. They really don't know who I am." The next morning, Maya walked straight into a news studio and sat for an interview. Live. No script. No lawyers. She stared into the camera and said, "I am being followed, watched. My name is being dragged through lies. But I'm not afraid. Because if they can do this to someone with a platform, imagine what they're doing to people with no voice. I will not back down." The interviewer sat speechless. The world watched in silence. And once again, Maya flipped the story. Now it wasn't just about the plane. It was about power. About how far corporations would go to protect themselves. About how one woman refused to be broken, even by the darkest threats. Behind the scenes, not everyone inside SkyConnect agreed with what was happening. Rachel, the whistleblower, reached out again. She sent Maya a secret file. One word was written on it: Vance. The same man who had started the dirty campaign. Rachel's message was short. He's not just working for the airline. He's done this to other people before. You're not safe. Maya looked up from the screen. For the first time, she realized this was bigger than just a lawsuit. She was fighting a system, one built to silence voices like hers. But she had made a choice long ago. She wouldn't be silent again. That night, Elijah knocked on her door, holding a folder. "I think I know how to end this," he said. She opened it, and her eyes widened. "What is this?" she asked. He smiled. "The final move. But you have to be ready." Maya nodded. I was born ready. The world was watching. Maya Daniels had gone from a passenger to a fighter, to a global symbol of justice. But the war was not over yet. The people behind SkyConnect had played their dirtiest cards. Fake news, secret files, private threats, and a man named Vance who had destroyed lives for years, in silence. Now Maya had one last move. In Elijah's folder was a document, bold but powerful. It was a non-disclosure agreement from years ago, signed by a former flight attendant who had once sued SkyConnect for discrimination. But her case never reached the public. Vance shut it down. Elijah said. They paid her, then erased the story. "But I found her," he added. "She's ready to speak." Maya's heart raced. More voices, more truth. She picked up her phone and called a journalist she trusted. "It's time," she said. "Let's bring the whole system down." The next week, a documentary went live, titled The Blacklist: Secrets of SkyConnect. It featured Maya's full plane video, unedited. It showed the false documents, the threats, and most importantly, Vance's entire past. Other victims came forward. A pilot, a flight attendant, even a former board member who said, "We always knew what was going on, but we were told to stay quiet." The world exploded. #cancel SkyConnect trended for days. Airports saw protesters. Shareholders pulled out. The airline's stock crashed by 70%. And then, the final hit came. The Department of Justice opened a criminal case, not just against the airline, but against Vance and several board members. Maya was called to testify. She stood before a room full of lawyers, reporters, and government officials. She told everything, from the first moment on that plane, to the late-night fear, to the courage she found in the fight. And when she finished, the room clapped. Even the judge. Weeks later, the verdict came in. SkyConnect was fined $5 billion. Vance was sentenced to 12 years in prison. New laws were passed, protecting whistleblowers and passengers worldwide. Maya didn't smile. She cried. Not for the money, not for revenge, but for every voice that was finally heard. A year later, Maya stood outside the courthouse. She was holding a book in her hands. Her story. The title, The Wrong Woman to Mess With. Beside her was Elijah, now a best-selling author too. And on her other side was her mother, holding her tight. "You did it," her mother whispered. "No, Mom," Maya said softly. "We did it." She used the settlement money not for luxury, but to start the Maya Foundation, helping women and people of color fight legal injustice. She traveled the world, speaking about courage and fear, pain and power, about standing alone and finding your voice anyway. And to those who still doubted her, she didn't shout. She didn't argue. She just smiled and said, "You picked the wrong woman."